economy or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 877-26-BIBLE. That's 877-26-BIBLE. 877-26-BIBLE.
40 West, things are backed up again from the 24 split here into downtown. 65 north and south, still managing to remain clear. 440 both directions in good shape. 40 east, no problems coming up from Bellevue. I'm Jack Womack. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From the Beacon Capital Management. Would you say political science or poli-sci?
I would probably say political science if I didn't know what poli-sci meant.
Not only would I say political science, I would give a filthy look or slap in the face anyone that used to say poli-sci. But I'm telling you, Max, a poli-sci, I can tell. All right, would you say collaboration or a collab?
I'd say collaboration.
This all depends.
You'd say collab, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because there's a Mac in the morning on the 10 spot on Sirius XM.
He's stealing my thunder.
That sounds. See if you can find Mac in the morning.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
What if
on
it is
10
Brother
spot.
Mac?
Ken, you're about to freak out when I play this for you.
Okay.
So I'm driving to work, and I think Mac's got like a side hustle.
Ah.
And this morning he was talking about, there's rumors about a collab between, and I thought, oh my God, I think it really is Mac, and he's pulling this off on all of us.
Mac never sleeps.
Do you have a?
He just works constantly.
I played Mac for Mac yesterday, and even Mac went, "Oh my God, that sounds like me." Because when I was growing up, everybody had voices that you just simply weren't born with. Now everybody just sounds normal. I'm telling you, Mac could make more money DJing on Sirius XM than he's making doing this.
It's just from his Facebook.
It sounds like Mac. And it's Mac in the morning. Well, that's that's a bad version. When you're listening on the radio and you're hearing him actually.
Well, yeah.
It sounds just like him. He's got the same cadence, the same voice, the same delivery. He even mentioned his girlfriend, Hannah. No, he didn't do that. But Mac,
wait, what?
Mac got us all in trouble with his stupid bracket. And, all you had to do was just do it. Just leave Mandis out. No, you got to give him a bracket.
Yeah, he needs one.
And then he's standing there going, this is just so we can all talk about it on the air. I mean, what were you thinking?
Have some friendly banter.
By the way, he did make a comment about, I guess it could kind of like a jihad sheet. That was his way of saying, I really wish you would make fun of the radio station on the air.
Yeah.
To go along with Mac and his... That I didn't have the heart to tell him I'm going to talk about female security guards sleeping with prisoners to start the show.
Oh, I saw that.
Oh, man.
Goodness.
Well, I don't want to steal any of my own thunder coming up because it kind of matched with my dream. And now it's turned into a fantasy. I mean, and if Keith Andrews alert, because only Keith Andrews is going to enjoy this story coming up from Ecole Classique, the only teacher that tried to sleep with us. And she didn't look like any of these 18 guards.
I was getting ready to say,
That
man,
and
this
more.
is unreal.
That and more coming. It'd be one thing to have 18 guards, female guards have to be fired for a sex ring. But when I tell you, and I don't watch it anymore because I don't even know what network it's on anymore. I'm telling you, these 18 are better than the top 10 of Miss America last year.
Goodness.
I mean, they're all gorgeous to boot. You're like, wow.
Somebody's making money off that.
Lock me up and throw away the key. By the way, what happened to the market? Oh, I'll get to that in a second. Cloudy skies. Oh, by the way, can you guys do one other thing while we're this way? For the podcast purposes, no one will hear this nonsense. I obviously, and I'm not going to make fun of the sheets, but I can't look out my window. Ken, you don't have a window,
I don't
right?
have one.
So, Mac, only you can, and it looks closed.
I've got it. It's open.
All right, can you look across the street at whatever that is? I don't know if they're condos, apartments, or whatever. Yeah. Is it me, or are you seeing the image of Prince?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there he is.
I noticed that the other night.
I thought, I was seeing things, and then, it's one thing.
Is that a painting or?
I have a fungus toe. Can I say that out loud? I don't know how I got it, and I just can't seem to get rid of it. And so
Dip it in alcohol.
I've tried everything, but it's turned into a stigmata. And I have shown it to Pam and Andrea, and I had some out-of-town company. I showed it to them. A lot of people say, if you got if you have a fungus toe, don't show it to people right before dinner. That didn't stop me. But
of course not.
Mac, if you would like to come in here, I want to show it to you.
Why?
Because it's a stigmata. I'm telling you, Christ has appeared in my toe.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Come on. Stop acting that way. What kind of a family were you raised in? And while you're in here, I'm going to fart.
Yeah.
Just to make you. All right.
That'll be an added bonus.
I got to tell you something. It's one of two things. It's either the Texas Tech logo or the cross has appeared in my toe. Look closely. You see the cross has appeared? Please say it out loud so they can hear you. The cross, it's a stigmata.
It's stigmata, man.
The Lord has appeared in my fungus toe. I can't make that up. What do you mean? All right, I'll take a picture for you. Hang on. I take my job. Don't tell me I don't take my job seriously.
Oh, man.
All right, let me zoom in here.
Brother Michael, we advertise a product that could help you with that.
All right, this is a bad view, but I'm going to send it to you anyway.
All right.
If you were in person, all right, so there's a top of it. You know what's going to happen now? All the listeners are going to go, could you please post that on the website?
Yes, they are.
We want to see it too. All right, so there's a portion of the top, Ken, that has kind of, come down. But if you get rid of that, there's a perfect cross.
Okay.
And it's not the greatest picture because, the lights are shining off the jihad sheets. But I'm telling you, the cross has appeared on my toe.
Dave from Supertech says, Michael, when you take a shower, pee on your feet. Don't laugh, just do it. It works.
Brother Michael?
I don't know if I can do that.
I believe that's the Texas Tech logo.
Well,
don't act like you're above peeing on your feet when you're showing people before dinner.
Now we're like theologians looking over the Shroud of Turin. All right, never mind. It is, if you include the top portion, it's the Texas Tech logo.
Yeah.
Gosh, you don't think Nick's going to choose Texas Tech, and that's where I got to go to college.
That's what's going to happen.
But if you disregard that top portion, you'll see just a cross.
I do see that.
And if you squint just right, you'll see the face of Prince. No, I was outside. I'm like, am I seeing things? All right, does anybody have any realistic explanation for why Prince is in that window?
I have no idea.
I don't either. That's why I thought I was seeing things. I was like,
it's a cool.
Is the Lord speaking?
Peace.
Is the Lord speaking to me through Prince to either overdose or get some Dr. Pepper? I couldn't figure out what was going on. By the way, it is 9:12. Now I'm going to, and you know what he'll do? We don't have what we call our little air check sessions, but like once a quarter. They're supposed to be weekly. And he'll pick today's show. We really need you to kind of start the show. All right, so wait a minute. Subliminally, the show doesn't start till what's the difference if we did this before or after the intro?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But, we'll have that argument off the air. But I'm going to get in trouble for this. But I just want to make sure I wasn't going crazy and seeing Prince. And I'm not going crazy. I mean, I'm either seeing Texas Tech or the cross on my toe.
Well, yeah, if you cover the top, it's definitely
the
cross,
isn't it?
Right.
Thank you, Lord.
But if you uncover it, it's definitely Texas Tech's logo.
I'm born again, baptized in the Holy Spirit. I even have the cross in my fungus toe. Even where there's death, there is life on me. Just in case anybody's listening and wants to make a movie about me.
Nick's going to go to Texas Tech and become a famous sports broadcaster.
The fungus revolution. I think it's got a ring to it.
Murphy says Prince has been on that building for at least a year, which I was thinking that too.
Really?
I'd seen that. Yeah.
I have never
Prince
seen
has
it
been
till
there for
today,
quite
and I
some
thought
time.
at first I thought, am I seeing things? Because I do that sometimes. I have seen things in my potato chips all the time. I'll see like a ram in a thicket in my potato chip. So I just thought, for me, I just thought it was just another vision. There's Prince. Okay.
A ram in a thicket.
I have on a potato chip. And I went, Abraham, are you trying to talk to me? Now, most people would not touch the chip. Oh, I ate it anyway.
Oh.
I'm going to still eat you, but I see a ram in the thicket.
Oh.
Is this the story of Abraham and Isaac?
Currently in Brentwood at the Puffy Buffet, we've got cloudy skies at 35. And just like that, Jack Womack's here.
That's right. Parent it.
Just a slight delay. Oh, by the way, I can't do it, but I did watch that World War I movie.
Oh, what we were talking about.
1917?
Oh, my.
It's incredible.
The new one, right?
Well,
the newer one.
No, the new one, not 1917.
Oh, yeah.
All Quiet on the Western Front, and it's from the German perspective. And if you're waiting for like a Saving Private Ryan or some, no story, just hell and nothing, hell and nothing, hell and nothing to show you. I think their message, if I received it properly, was a bunch of guys eating like kings in safety, throwing 18-year-olds to death, which might be happening in the news today with Russia. We'll talk more about that with Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano. Where was I? Oh, yeah, cloudy skies, 35 degrees at the Puffy Buffet in Brentwood. We're going to pair that up with a cloudy sky at 35 degrees in Hendersonville.
Might pair it up with some showers later.
And some showers later. And, of course, by the way, when I pulled up, it was snowing. You guys didn't
Really?
realize. Yeah, I know sheets are covering your view, but it was snowing outside. Downtown, cloudy skies, spitting some snow, 36 degrees, feels like 29. The market, go figure. We need more banks to fail. It won't hold, though. Dow's up 329, NASDAQ's up 209, and the S&P's up 62. I want to talk to you about insanely clean carpets. I use Zero Res, and here's why. The name says it all. Zero residue cleaning means nothing to you, right? Because you call a traditional cleaner, and they arrive with chemicals, shampoos, and detergents. And you don't know, whatever it takes, clean my carpets. But when you use chemicals, shampoos, and detergents, you leave the residue behind. You'll feel it when it dries. It's crunchy under your feet. And it forms a dirt magnet. So here's my honest assessment. They will clean your carpets great, but they won't stay clean for long. And it's not all that safe for kids and pets to play on while it's drying. Zero Res, just the opposite. We arrive with no chemicals, no shampoos, no detergents. We leave no residue behind. We use science-empowered water. You get insanely clean carpets that last longer, safe for kids and pets to play on while it's drying. And the longest lasting and right way to clean is also by far the most affordable. Our March offer, 3 rooms and a hallway, just $129. 3 rooms and a hallway, $129 when you call Zero Res today. Don't forget to ask about 20% off air duct cleaning as well. It's allergy season. Call 535-9376 today for Zero Res, the right way to clean. 535-9376 or book your appointment online at ZeroResNashville.com. I would have started on time if you hadn't been schlepping your bracket to Mandis and said, oh, this is just so we could talk about it on the air. That's what started it all. And the next thing you know, I whip my toe out and the stigmata is revealed. And that's how the show starts 17 minutes late. Hey, can I talk to you about how late the show started on Tuesday, March the 14th? Sure, let's talk about it. Meanwhile, for those 16 of you watching on television, I slit the sheet I slit, and on the slitted sheet I speak.
Ooh.
9:17 in the morning. All right, so I was doing all my show prep, and I come across this, and the headline is the entire story. You don't need me to belabor it. Wild sex claims revealed. Now, this is one of the cushiest prisons in England. I guess so. 18 female guards in all quit or fired when prison officials uncover a sex ring with female guards and prisoners. At least 18 female guards in the UK's cushiest prison have reportedly been fired or resigned amid a flurry of sordid sexual accusations, including claims of sex inside cells. One guard smuggling her underwear to an inmate. And so I'm like, why did that make you laugh?
That's
now you got visions of a guy going, that's it? I just get underwear?
exactly.
Bill in cell block C said he got. And this has apparently been going on since like 2017. And so then you're like, okay, can you imagine what a UK, prison guard must look like. And then you're like, and this is without makeup.
Yes.
And they look better than the top 3 in Miss America. And I know Keith Andrews listens. And I think Keith, I don't think it's unfair to do this because she's gone. But Miss Eddie was our accounting teacher. And Miss Eddie lived in my neighborhood just adjacent to Keith's neighborhood. And she technically, I think, lived in her mother's house with her mother in our neighborhood. And she was always trying to get Keith and I to come to the house at night and study.
Yeah.
You know, and Keith and I were so oblivious, right? Now, Miss Eddie I don't think Miss Eddie was that old then. I think she was probably only early 50s. But to us, she looked, like, she kind of reminded me a little bit of Aunt B on the Andy Griffith Show. All right, or picture a cross between Aunt B and Eleanor Roosevelt hitting on you. You're not going to notice.
No.
It's too unthinkable to notice. But it was always like, well, you guys could always come by the house. And doing all these Beverly D'Angelo faces. And we were like, you don't think Miss Eddie.
Oh.
No. But that's the kind of stuff that would happen to us. And then every time you have a scandal, now you see these, gorgeous young teachers that are having scandals with students. And then the scandal in the UK, and they are all gorgeous guys. I mean, I could just picture these people in parole board hearings. I object, Your Honor. I'm a danger to the community. You need to keep me locked up or I'll do something. I'm telling you, I'll do it. Don't push me. I'll do it. Lock me up. Throw away the key. That's when they knew something suspicious was going on.
Wow.
But isn't that a bizarre story?
Yeah, they've had to fire 31 of these female guards.
Gosh.
Said
What? Wait, so this isn't just...
Do me a favor and have your finger on the rim shot. Said one prisoner, we do hard time here. I want to talk to you about starting the show late and that joke about hard time.
Oh.
Because we were thinking about doing it in the Gang of 3, but we had enough sense not to. Why didn't you? Oh, and this from management. Oh. And you call yourself a Christian.
Goodness.
No, but I don't know why. It's probably politically incorrect to say that, but I mean, it's just a part of the story. You scroll down, and I'm telling you, they're beautiful women, too. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
I bet it's a scandal.
I think it is, too. I told Brother Mac off mic, I think somebody made money off this.
Well, that, my mind went there, but that is yet to be proven. But, yeah.
Of course, I mean, I don't know how much money inmates have to...
That, and I know we're running just a little bit late, but a fashion designer is now claiming that the Biden ex-official Sam Brinton, remember the guy who stole luggage to get women's dresses?
So
he could wear them?
Yeah.
So now a fashion designer I'll tell you about it in a second. It's obvious he stole her dress. I mean, first of all, it's not a kind of dress you wouldn't have stolen. You would never find this on a rack. It's such a unique design. And here's her dress on a runway model, and then you see him in it in a selfie.
Oh, God.
And it's like, and I'm just like, all of this stuff is like clouding. I can't focus on the news to do my job. These stories just keep drawing me in. But I mean, it's so clear. If you go to my Facebook wall or go to Fox, you'll see the story. I mean, it's so, it's not, my wife, we never had any family near us. And so we had no one to watch our kids. So one time I wanted to, because Andrew and I hadn't been alone together in like 12 years. It was crazy. And so we went through one of these services, and I'm not going to give the service's name. And they rent you a nanny, and the nanny stays with the kids while you're gone. And, they're all supposedly vetted and insured for your protection and all that other stuff. So we did it. We were only gone like 32 hours. And this woman who they assigned us stole one of, now you would go into my closet and think, all these shoes, I could steal a pair of shoes. Michael will never notice. Oh, I'll notice. I won't wear them, but I'll notice them missing. That's how my wife is with purses. So she took her summer Coach or whatever it was. It had a name.
Wow.
And then had the nerve to go on Facebook and post pictures of herself with her purse. There's one of her straddling a pig, and she's got my wife's purse on her arm.
Wow.
And there was nothing we could do about it to get the purse back because she didn't have her name sewn in it or anything like that. But it was so obviously her purse. It wasn't like a typical Coach. It was a plaid summer. She's probably going to text me the name of it. But if you came in and looked at this dress, it's clearly that dress. Now, how did he get that? How long was this guy stealing? And where? How do you? I mean, what did he break into their? I mean, because the one I know his shtick was he would go to the airport and leave with luggage of a woman.
Right.
He'd spot a woman, leave with her luggage if she looked roughly his size. But how did he get a fashion designer's runway design? And she's going, "That's my dress," and there he is posing in it.
Unless it was on a rack.
And let me just say, he looks terrific. All right. I am going to erase the first 24 minutes of this show, so there's no record of it. And we are going to start all over again and do a serious news talk show worthy of the seriousness of the hour in which we live next. And if you believe that, I'm broadcasting live from prison in the UK. It's 9:25.
Massive layoffs just announced for
Here?
social media.
Oh.
The rate of inflation slowed down in February, and there's going to be a big safety summit tomorrow to figure out why so many planes are nearly running into each other on the runway and in the air. And gasoline prices are going in the wrong direction in Tennessee. Details at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I just realized something that happened last night in the middle of the night that just came true.
What's that, brother?
So I was lying in bed, and it was really, really cold. Like somebody had taken all my blankets.
Yeah.
And I could see my breath. And I looked up, and there was Larry King. Not Prince, Larry King. Tomorrow morning, when you're on your show, the one that hasn't won a Peabody, or anything for that matter, you will reveal the stigmata in your toe. And then he left. As quick as he came, he left.
He was just gone.
Did I really bring up the cross in my fungus toe? What
You did, Brother Michael.
What is wrong with me?
You showed me it.
It's impressive, though, isn't it?
That could be a word described, yes.
Guns up, Red Raiders.
I had someone go, Brother Michael, please don't do real news. It's kind of like when I used to watch Jonathan Winters as a kid. No, let the nut go. Let's see what he says.
Absolutely.
Well, we just decided to do the rest of our show with the pants off, wrapped only in our jihad sheet. I said this, I think, a week or so ago. I don't say that to impress anybody, but to impress upon anybody. We got to get over this notion we're talking about UFOs, of Martians. You know, I think that's kind of the problem when we discuss UFOs, that people think we're talking about life forms from another planet. It's just an unidentified flying object. But these unidentified flying objects are really technologies from current enemies. That's the testimony of some of the strange things an ex-Navy pilot has seen. We're going to talk about that with our Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano. Fingers crossed. I haven't heard from him. He's joining us for our weekly visit next on WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Silicon Valley Bank, the big story in the tech world at the moment, but there's also a new round of layoffs at one of the largest big tech firms. About 10,000 Meta employees going to be laid off over the next few months. The Facebook parent company says it's closing 5,000 of its job positions that are open. The rate of inflation slowed down in February. Prices for the things we need going up 0.4% month over month, 6% year over year. The Federal Aviation Administration convenes a safety summit tomorrow to try to fix whatever's causing what officials say is an increase in close calls in the air and on runways lately. Planes almost hitting each other, on track for 20 incidents this year alone. Gasoline prices climbing higher here in Middle Tennessee. Gas Buddy puts the average per gallon this morning at $3.24. That's up 16 cents since last week. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
9:39 in the morning, 21 minutes before 10 o'clock. Colder than you thought it was going to be, right? 36, feels like 29. It was spitting snow downtown not long ago. High today, 47. Believe it or not, we're going to see some sunshine a little bit later on. The timing couldn't be more, well, the timing's always perfect. Tuesday mornings with Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano from one of the largest think tanks in the world, the Heritage Foundation. I think he's the foremost military and foreign policy mind in America today. You see him on Fox, you hear him here weekly, but last night, the only good thing that came from the Oscars was All Quiet on the Western Front. It didn't win a lot, but I watched it last night, and the perfect timing is this morning I'm talking with a true historian and a former instructor at West Point. It got me thinking, and of course I've been to no war, and all war is hell, but there's the paddies of Vietnam. There is the early revolutionary styles where a drummer's on the front line facing bullets. And then there's trench warfare. Here's another movie portraying trench warfare, this time World War I, and from the perspective of Germany. And it was us pumping in the boots on the ground. But there was a thing at the end where it kind of like encapsulates, you've been through this hell for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then you realize on this northern front of France, these trenches, because you were seeing them in the movie, and they keep coming back to what you're like, is that the same trench? That they fought for 3 to 4 years, millions of lives lost, and it was all in about 100 meters. That's the furthest they advanced was 100 meters, then got pushed back. And I mean, I was just blown away by it. You've taught war. Trench warfare had to be one of the worst, right?
Well, sorry. It's amazing how many wars actually had trench warfare in them. And we tend to think of World War I is the iconic, war of the trenches, but there, for example, there were battles in World War II, particularly in the Normandy campaign during the Bocage, which the fighting was not much different than trench warfare. The whole last year of the Korean War looked just like World War I. There are aspects of the war in Vietnam, particularly in the fighting around the tunnels of Gucci, which again looked a lot like trench and warfare. So trench warfare is we tend to think of it as some kind of obsolete thing that we associate with World War I, but in all kinds of wars, it
reappears, right?
So and for a simple reason is when you cannot maneuver around a geographic point and you want to fight. The way people survive is you get your head down, right, and that's where trench warfare comes. So strategies are not new or old, right? Strategies are something in people's head, and so. But
it's conditions on the ground driven, right?
So the Russians have essentially adopted a strategy very, very similar to what the enemies did in World War I, which was called a strategy of exhaustion, which was being unable to actually break through. We're just going to keep killing until the other guy gets exhausted and quits. And so, there's not much difference between the strategy that the armies had on the ground in 1916 and the strategy that Russia is fighting today.
Well, just so you know, before you came on the air, that was the exact point I made. Here I am watching this movie, and the headline is Russia sacrificing forces as live meat in a strategy. Right. If you watch the movie All Quiet on the Western Front, and I think the first thing that would jump out at you is, we're going to see the German perspective for a change, which is interesting for us because, we like to watch the good guys, us. Right. But, to be on the other side of the line and watching, these were real human beings, real kids that had no business being in this situation and surviving this. But ultimately what you're seeing, and I think this is the brilliance of this movie. Have you seen it yet, by the way?
Yeah, I actually thought it was boring.
Well, no, boring but brilliant. All right, you and I are just alike. Boring but brilliant. I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know where this is going. I mean, I realize I'm following this kid from wouldn't it be cool to have a uniform and be in the Army and prove my mom wrong, to hell and then nothing, hell and then nothing. And then ultimately that this is humanity. But they were pawns in a game is what I think they were showing. Notice how they were starving, looking for anything to eat. Meanwhile, the generals are on their fancy trains, wasting food and throwing it to the dogs. they were showing you how wars are fought by the top who don't have skin in the game, and the pawns are the kids and the millions of lives we throw to hell and death. I thought that much was brilliant. What I thought was scary was how similar it is to what Russia's doing right now. Now, the guy that taught at West Point, I want to ask, I would think air superiority put an end to trench warfare, right? More than anything in the open.
So, air power and armor were two things that restored mobility to the battlefield. But again, nothing is a silver bullet. I mean, Russia has lots of planes, right? And they have lots of tanks, and they're fighting trench warfare, right? So it's a combination of it's not just technology. It's not just human beings and people. It's not just general. It's the confluence of all these things on the ground that leads to the peculiar situations that happens. And it's often unpredictable because, it's a lot, the difference between making a movie, you hire the sound guy and the editor guy and the actors and the script writer and everything, and they're all moving together in a common purpose. But when you bring together geography and weapons and people and training and bombs and politics on the battlefield, that all collides.
Right.
And that produces something that maybe you never anticipated. I wrote a book on the Papua New Guinea campaign in World War II, which is probably the worst fighting conditions that any human being has ever experienced anywhere. And you would ask, like, why the hell are people fighting in a place where the one thing you should actually not be doing this is the worst possible place to fight a war. What the hell are people doing here?
Right.
And this is what happens. Thucydides, that you said, war is a step into the dark, which is, I'm not Pollyannish. I'm not saying wars are never going to happen and people shouldn't fight wars like to defend themselves and stuff. But anybody who thinks when you start off on a war that where the thing's going to end. 9 times out of 10, if you're right, it's because you're the lucky idiot.
I'm not doing a movie review with a lieutenant colonel and a foremost military foreign policy mind. I wouldn't waste his time that way, but it's so relevant if you really understand what I think the directors and the writers of All Quiet on the Western Front were trying to show. It is exactly what's happening in real time with Russia and Ukraine, which is to say, they're not making any advances. It doesn't look like victory is still possible. It's inevitable you're probably going to withdraw. How long do you keep throwing bodies at something before you do the inevitable and sign a treaty and return home? I mean, I think that much is relevant to your expertise, don't you?
I mean, and the answer is we don't know. I mean, the Germans actually fought to the point where they collapsed.
Right.
Right. And that could happen. Or, the famous saying is the enemy gets a vote. I mean, we said this on the many times. All we know for sure that I can guarantee is every day the Russians fight, they're weaker than they were the day before. And they become less of a threat to all of their neighbors in the future. That's the only.
Do you want to pretend we're at West Point and let all these cadets know that led to the fall of Germany, which led to the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany? I mean, careful when things fall, something worse can arise.
Well, this, of course, is one of the problems with history books, which is, we think of history in kind of these discrete chapters, and we get enamored with these terms of victory, defeat, rise, fall, and everything else, as if, World War I starts on page 1, and then the last page of chapter World War I is done, and we move on. And the reality is as long as we're alive and we're human beings, there's this element of continuity, and nothing that's done in life is all good or all bad. It all has consequences of mixed value. And so, when we ended World War II, which was the good war, half of Western Europe was occupied by murderous, bloodthirsty Russians. Well, was that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, the reality is, no, that was the thing, right? Everybody, I think not amateurs, that's unkind. People think this notion that there is a perfect outcome, that it's like a game, that if I just figure out, like in a movie, I can get to a perfect outcome. And the reality is you really can't do that. If Germany had won World War I, All Quiet on the Western Front would have been a novel about the sacrifice and virtue of German youth that led to this great victory.
It waits for the outcome. It's armchair quarterbacking, right? It's narrative. It's narrative over reality.
Thank you. And this is the problem. This is the number one problem we have in the world today, which is people that want to spin narratives. And so, and I'm not going to name names here, but everybody has a political view of what they think is going on in the Ukraine war, and what they're doing is they're putting their narrative over the Ukraine war, as if it was just following some kind of script that they had written, and it doesn't. It's just reality unfolding before our eyes, and we can be realistic about it and deal with it, or we can just live in our little narratives, and then pretend we were right all along, whatever the outcome was.
James Carafano is a lieutenant colonel. He also heads up all the great military and foreign policy minds at the Heritage Foundation. You can read his great work and his colleagues' great work at heritage.org. I said this about a week or so ago, and I meant to talk to you about it the week that we ended up talking about your dad. But there's this, get rid of it. Can we just go late? I'm not going to make him sit through a commercial break. It's James Carafano. He's above that. But no, do you really want to sit through 4 minutes of commercials to come back for 2 minutes?
I can't really, because I got
there. So that'll come up in my air check session, but I'll take the beating later. This notion that when we discuss UFOs, people picture ET. That's got to stop, right? They're unidentified flying objects, and what they really are technologies, modern technologies, moving at the speed of sound. Somebody's surveilling us. But there's a story on Fox, ex-Navy pilot, who has seen these UFOs up close. There was one where two fighters were side by side, and one of these dark cubes in a circle at the speed of sound went right between their planes. We need to be curious, is what he says. And Ryan Graves says everything I just said. Stop picturing ET. Stop picturing Martians from Mars. These are, enemies in today's real time using technology to surveil us.
And the physics on this is pretty clear. If there was an alien civilization that had come to Earth, the level of energy that they would have to expend in order to do that in real time is so great that we wouldn't recognize them as even being anything, right? So if you're actually seeing a technology that you can observe, like in the science fiction cartoons in the 1950s and stuff, it's not an alien thing, right? But having said that, what people observe could be all kinds of wacky, things from balloons to environmental conditions and everything else. And so, but the notion that somehow this is something from outer space is, I think that's
I get that, and I agree with him and you. But now the obvious question with our final minute is, all right, what the hell is all this stuff, and who has that much better technology than us that we can't identify it?
I don't think there is a level of technology that is so advanced that's from somebody that's a competitor of ours that we wouldn't recognize or identify it. Some of this goes to sources and methods too, which is there are times and things that you see advanced technologies and you don't acknowledge it because you don't want to talk about it. So for example, when we flew the U-2s over the Soviet Union under Eisenhower, the Russians didn't talk about it because they couldn't shoot them down. So they just didn't acknowledge that the Americans could actually do that. So sometimes for we would not be talking about the balloon if it wasn't publicly identified. The government would have, whatever their response to that was, they would have done it and not even acknowledge it ever happened. Right. So there's some of that as well. Sometimes it's our stuff. I mean, there are a lot of things flying out of Nevada in the 1970s and 80s that were identified as UFOs, and they were actually, the first generation of stealth aircraft that were being flown by the Air Force, which we didn't even acknowledge existed until the invasion of Panama.
I was just going to say,
we show up with a fighter jet that nobody had ever seen before. It's like, how did that happen? Well, so we were testing them, and people thought they were UFOs.
One of the best shows we ever did was 3 hours where we didn't have to be interrupted. But this isn't going to be fair to you, other than to say I think your day is coming. I'm watching a CBS News report about an expert who is doing all the deep dive into evidence, and it's clear not only were we funding the Wuhan lab, We were double paying for the Wuhan lab.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking,
Isn't it? And I mean, I just think this drip is going to come to a reality. We're going to get to the truth about COVID. And I remember your outrage, which was very similar to mine. Not only that, what were you doing in that lab? Why were you doing it? Why were we funding it? Why did we know all along and not reveal it to the American people and protect the American people? And oh, by the way, we're still doing this type of dangerous gain of function research within our own borders. So once we get to proven Wuhan, I hope we come home and prove what a immunologist, not a virologist that we trusted, was really up to in funding.
Right.
But we're getting closer, right?
Well, I think, even understanding what the U.S. was funding, that's going to help us a lot understand exactly what the Chinese were doing. And it definitely will create more context for what we think was happening. So I do think there's more to be known. And this is why it is very important to have all this information made public, because you can't connect dots if you don't know all the dots that are out there. And so the more dots that we publicly put, then people are going to look at those things and say, well, what about this? You didn't think about that. And that's when you start to piece things together. So I do think people can say, well, I've read all the classified stuff and it doesn't really tell you anything. So, but the point is that's not the point. Is make it all public, and then people will see that, and then they'll go looking for other things, and that may create some new things. So for example, I don't think anybody looked at this issue of the dual funding of USAID and NIH of the labs. I mean, I think that's very, very important. I mean, it just shows the poor level of oversight there was on this project. And look, here's the thing that we know for a fact. Obama funded these labs, and he funded it because this was going to help make the Chinese be nice people, right? Even though we knew for a fact that the standards in the lab were substandard, and this was very, very serious and dangerous research. But the politics of it were, well, we have to fund these labs to show the Chinese that we're working with them.
And as it turns out, double fund them. James Carafano, I love you. I value your time so much. Thank you for today. We'll talk next week.
Thanks for having me.
9:56.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Getting reports of snow in some parts of Tennessee. A listener chiming in from Tullahoma says they've had some snow flurries down there. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. The federal government will propose new drinking water regulations, which the EPA says will save thousands of lives, prevent serious illness, including cancer. It's going to mean higher utility bills for water systems to be able to afford to meet these new standards if they are adopted. The plan marks the first time the EPA's proposed regulating a toxic group of compounds, PFAS, or polyfluorinated substances, allegedly linked to a broad range of health issues, including low birth weight babies and kidney cancer. A new inflation report. Here's Alexis Christoforous.
We'll start with the good news, which is that inflation is cooling a little bit, but still uncomfortably high. Consumer prices up 6% year over year, month over month up 0.4%. And when we dig deeper into this report, we find that rent, shelter, which made up about 70% of the rise, up 8% year over year. So shelter costs continue to be a big issue for Americans.
About 10,000 Meta employees will be laid off over the next few months, and the Facebook parent company says it's closing 5,000 of its open job positions. A terrifying tale of a child meeting her abductor online is being used as a warning to other families. Pay attention to who your kids are communicating with. Lionel Moise has the latest on that Texas teen who was found locked up in a shed in North Carolina.
The FBI Violent Crime Task Force in Texas, coordinated with the sheriff in Davidson County, North Carolina, quickly zeroing in on where they believed she was. Finding the teen locked in this green shed, the property owner saying she had no idea someone was in her shed.
I never see her inside my house, on the camera. I didn't know she was even here.
This case, another example of the rising problem of human trafficking.
Authorities say they arrested Jorge Camacho. The 34-year-old was in court yesterday to face rape, kidnapping, and human trafficking charges. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Let's just consider this an extension of the newscast. I want you to hear some audio. And this is everyday people on the street. And the question is, should Joe Biden run again? Has he done a good job, and should he run again? Because you just did an entire newscast, and everybody can see the writing on the wall with inflation, with recession, how it's going to peak during a presidential election. Now, that may all turn into narratives and agenda and politics, and that would be a shame because there are real economic problems to be solved. But your first question is, do the American people, especially the Democrats, understand how this is going? Listen to some of this audio of everyday people.
Well, because number one, Biden's done a terrible job. And number two, I just haven't heard of any candidates that I'm even familiar with that are opposing him.
I think we do need some new blood in the Democratic Party.
I used to be a Democrat, and I'm ashamed of that party now. And I would vote Republican just because the Democrats are so bad.
I agree because President Biden has always made sure that we need what we have here so far. I haven't had an issue with them. Definitely since the pandemic and it's rising and also ending, he's always been very vocal, him and Ms. Harris, about things that we need, and they've always been top tier, and they've been upfront with that.
I disagree. I don't think he's doing a good job, so I disagree.
I agree that Biden's doing a great job. He's 10 times better than Donald Trump ever was.
All right, by the way, I found that one. By the way, every time they show a worker on a work site, you hear things like this.
Been doing a superb job. I would like to see some fresh blood and some new ideas for the Democratic Party coming up.
Yeah, but it was funny. There's no substance to anybody that goes, oh, he's doing a great job. Miss Harris is doing a great job. But there's no substance really to it. The one person, he's 10 times better than Donald Trump. That's just an anti-Trump Democrat. But what you're seeing is, by and large, people are starting to get it. The conditions and the circumstances and how it's affecting their life. This goes back to what Ronald Reagan did in 1979 with Jimmy Carter. If your life's better, by all means, reelect the president. If your life is not better than it was 4 years ago, or it's worse, please listen to me. I have ideas. It was a very powerful, and a lot of people point to that as the turning point in that election. And you're kind of even seeing that in the verbatims of people. Those were all Democrats. And it was 3-1. No, he's not doing a good job. Or even if I want to be loyal to my party, we got to get some fresh ideas. I thought the other interesting one was the guy who said, but I don't see anybody out there with any fresh ideas within their party. So you would think this denial and the political games that they're playing, it doesn't seem to be working. Even the citizens of their own party are feeling the effects of their failed policy. And I think that makes, at least early on, it shapes this election in a very amazing way. I think this may be one of the most honest election cycles, potentially, in the midst of a social dilemma and matrix that we've had since 1980. That's how bad things really are and are not getting better. We're going to have to get beyond politics to solve this and partisan loyalty to solve this. And I'm sensing in some of those verbatims that that's the case. When we come back, I'm going to play a clip from CBS News in something that I discussed with Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, because this is CBS following the money to Wuhan. It's powerful, and it's next on WTN. At 10:09, by the way, on the super text line, somebody told me it's snowing in Cool Springs. It was snowing here when I pulled up.
What in the world is going on out there?
Well, it's only March 14th.
Yeah, we're still in winter for at least another week, I think.
Cloudy and 36 was some snow spitting in Brentwood. 36 to the north in Hendersonville. It's 36 downtown and feels like 29 at WTN. The Dow up 444 at 32,263. I like that. NASDAQ's up 240, 11,429. And the S&P approaching triple digits, up 73 at 39.29. Far from a correction of what we've lost in the last couple of weeks. But at 10:09, the market, all three are in the green and is up, and up significantly. United Structural Systems, they've been the go-to company for decades. Started with Dad, son still runs it. When it comes to concrete lifting, waterproofing, and foundation repair, there is no better. And that's not just my opinion. They have 23,000 100% satisfied Middle Tennessee families. They're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. What I love, if I see something suspicious, they don't send a salesman. Somebody there to find something they can make money with. We send project managers to do an inspection. Why? We're in the problem-solving business. And a good percentage of the time, there is no problem. And that's peace of mind for free and no obligation. But if it is something significant, we catch it early while you have options and affordability. The longer you wait, the less options and affordability. Time is not on your side, but USS is. So what are you seeing? Could be cracks in your bricks. Could be moisture in the crawl space or basements, leaning chimneys, bowing basement walls. Get a free inspection and estimate today. No obligation. We guarantee our best. Call USS 227-2275. 227-2275. That's 227-2275 or online at USSTN.com. Telling not the truth. He's standing up for what is right. 10:11 in the morning at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I think Ken would agree with me. If there's two things I noticed. A, this is CBS Evening News. B, the length of the piece. Now remember, let's do the reverse of this, and that's bias. How do you do bias? Stories you cover, stories you ignore. You would expect CBS to ignore this story. Angles you cover, angles you don't dare cover. You wouldn't expect this angle from CBS. The people you talk to, the people you don't, you wouldn't expect them to talk to this forensic investigative expert. And then the quotes you choose and the quotes you don't choose is how you create bias. You wouldn't expect these quotes. So if this had been a Fox News story, it'd be one thing. This is CBS connecting the dots and following the money. And here's how it sounded.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings. We've got new details to share with you today about an investigation into U.S. funding of a Chinese research lab in the city at the center of the pandemic. It's raising questions about how closely past administrations were following the use of the money. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us from Washington with more. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Michelle. Sources tell CBS News an investigation of this complexity could take at least 6 months to reach a conclusion about whether U.S. government agencies were billed twice for projects in Wuhan, China. The probe kicked off after new information came to light from Congress.
We are collecting evidence here and collecting facts.
Former federal investigator Diane Cutler spent 2 decades combating white-collar crime and healthcare fraud. During the pandemic, Cutler turned her attention to U.S. government grants that supported coronavirus-related research in China.
How many records have you viewed? My collection is certainly well over 50,000 documents.
Records reviewed by CBS News indicate the U.S. government may have paid twice for projects at the Wuhan labs through the National Institutes of Health and the U.S. Agency for...
I'm just going to interrupt. I'm not going to drive you crazy, but National Institute of Health is Dr. Fauci. So you have double payments going from the U.S. International Development and Fauci's NIH to this lab. All things he's denied under oath. So not only is Fauci revealed for having been involved in this, so from day one, he's been funding it. Fauci could have been far more informative and far more transparent about the one question never asked, and certainly the one question never answered. What the hell were they doing in that lab? That's what we needed to know from moment one. Secondly, why? Thirdly, why were we funding it? Fourthly, why such suspicious behavior when you covered up the leak and tried to sell a narrative over what it was, because you were protecting yourself, Dr. Fauci. And this is the guy we were turning to. Although, as I said from the very beginning, nothing's more revealing that when COVID hit, the only person of authority and wisdom we trusted, including the president, wasn't even a virologist. You can't top that. But not only were we funding that Wuhan lab, now, in defense of Dr. Fauci and the NIH, when he was funding it, the motive is probably closer to what you just heard James Carafano say last half hour. This was just the Obama administration trying to do something nice for China for a political ass kiss. You may not have known all of what they were doing, but you should have before you funded it, let alone funded it twice. Secondly, none of this has anything to do with once it leaked, what China did, which was clearly protect Chinese people within Chinese borders and recklessly handled the spread outside of China, almost to the point where it was intended to arrive in the U.S., where a current president was wreaking havoc on them economically. But just to follow the bouncing ball, you have Diane Cutler, one of the top federal forensic investigators in terms of fraud, going through 50,000 documents. And already we're a minute into this long piece, and you got Fauci's NIH and USAID both double funding this dangerous research.
International Development, or USAID.
So I categorized it and then drilled down from there.
This included possible medical supplies, equipment, travel, and salaries.
So what I found so far is evidence that points to double billing, potential theft of government funds. It is concerning. especially since it involves dangerous pathogens and risky research.
While intelligence agencies can't agree on how the pandemic that killed more than 1.1 million Americans started, the FBI and now the Energy Department have found an accidental lab leak is plausible, not potentially through infected animals at a nearby market. At recent congressional hearings into the origins of COVID-19, the former CDC director said money from multiple U.S. government agencies supported high-risk virus research in Wuhan.
I think it did, not only from NIH, but from the State Department, USAID, and from DOD.
Does following the money get us closer to understanding the origins of COVID-19?
Following the money always seems to work in investigations.
Republican Senator Roger Marshall hired Cutler and took her records to USAID's internal watchdog, which opened its own probe, details of which have not been previously reported.
What needs to happen next?
Next, we do need this 9/11 style commission. I call it apolitical, non-political. We need to get this outside of Washington, D.C.
Sources familiar with the grant records did not dispute CBS News' reporting. In a statement, a spokesperson for the USAID Inspector General declined to comment on the existence of a specific open investigation.
Why should U.S. taxpayers care?
I think there's 1.1 million reasons that American taxpayers should care. If a plane crashes, we want to find out why the plane crashes. We go to any lengths to do that. And the hope is we don't have another plane crash for the same reason.
Sources told CBS News that tens of millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars could be involved, and the findings could provide new insight into the Wuhan research.
Now, this is a very complex topic. There's no question about it. But if I were to oversimplify, I would oversimplify this way. When the truth comes out, and it seems to be coming out, I realize how partisanly divided we are in this country, how narratives and agenda and social dilemma and matrix works. But when this all comes out, it's going to be impossible for you to point your finger just to China. You may not be willing to see the truth, but if you're capable of seeing the truth, you should be just as disgusted with your government as you are with China, especially when you find out your government is still doing this type of gain-of-function research. Because at the very root of this is, why are you doing this? Why in a lab are you creating very dangerous viruses and creating through gain-of-function the ability for it to transfer to humans? Now, this is why, and they would call you a conspiracy theorist, you're going to quickly go, well, are you trying to create a biological weapon? What are you doing? It's very dangerous, and it can leak, and it did leak, and it can leak again. So that's why I say there's no more fundamental question than what were you doing in that lab and why? Now, the notion that Fauci wasn't even a virologist, and that's who was the foremost authority we were taking all our cues from, whether it was, it's just a cold that won't get here. Go to the Super Bowl, have a good time. To, we got to close every business and every school in America. Everybody has to stay home, not just the sick, the healthy. Everybody has to stay home, or 2 million will die by Easter. And then it was wear a mask or else, or get the vaccine or else. And the fundamental question has always been, what were you doing in that lab and why? And now welcome to today, where even CBS gets it and is telling you through a foremost investigator, you were involved. Your money was involved. You were double paying for something that, and I don't believe it was 1 million. I think 1 million people died, but they didn't all die of COVID. They died with COVID, many. Drip, 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 drip. And the drip ain't going away anytime soon. It's 10:20 at Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. I get pain. And it can be back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain. It's the battle of your day. And even if it lets you fall asleep, it's the first thing waiting for you in the morning. And what you rarely get a chance to think about is all the things you used to do that you loved doing that you can't do anymore. Well, the Dr. Gill Center in Franklin, we've been helping people get back to pain-free living, back to doing what they love for over 30 years. And I know you think chiropractic care, but we have state-of-the-art industry equipment like Class 5 lasers, red light therapy, spinal decompression therapy, a game changer, separation without a scalpel, No needles, no downtime. This is all designed to pinpoint in the body inflammation, reduce pain, reduce swelling, and ultimately accelerate healing with treatment. Pain-free living, back to doing what you love. And here's the best part. I think the Dr. Gill Center is your best bet at avoiding surgery and living pain-free, but it's your best first step, even if it ends up in surgery, because $23 covers your entire new patient appointment. $23. That's your extensive exam, any and all x-rays and imaging, and your accurate diagnosis. So don't do nothing and never settle for just a pill. Call the Dr. Gill Center. New phone number, 882-4838. Take advantage of our $23 new patient appointment. 882-4838, 882-4838, online at callmepainfree.com.
The EPA will propose new drinking water standards that it says will save lives, but it's also going to hit you in the pocketbook. And Kentucky is advancing a medical marijuana bill. It just cleared a state Senate committee. We'll tell you more about it coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We got serious problems, and all we hear about is marijuana. I'm about ready to start smoking myself. All right, so by the way, speaking of water quality, Ken, everybody's kind of doing this trend to reusable water bottles. Now, again, if you gotta wash them.
Oh, now it's just my germs.
So the question is, how often do you clean your new reusable body? A recent study shows that the average reusable bottle contains about 40,000 more bacteria than a toilet seat. Now, who would think? You see a dog and you go, "That's beneath you." I call my dog Son. Son, stop that. That's beneath you.
Stop that, Son.
You're drinking out of the toilet as you take a sip of your water, and you're drinking out of something filthier than the toilet. Researchers swabbed different water bottles with different lids and found two kinds of bacteria, one which can cause antibiotic resistance infections, and the other that can cause stomach issues. There's one guy here out of three of us drinking out of a reusable bottle, and he's the only one that runs to the bathroom 3 to 4 times a show. Could be something to that. Compared to other household items, bottles contain twice as many germs as a kitchen sink and 14 times more than the pet's drinking bowl. I mean, this is...
Ew.
I mean, what do we do? Do we have these bottles floating in the oceans hurting marine life, or...
I'm going to start wearing a mask.
Do we all start drinking out of a toilet bowl?
Yeah, drink with a mask on, Ken. That'll do it. That'll protect you.
All right, so here's the bottom line. How often do you wash that bottle?
Honestly, I probably haven't washed this bottle in a month.
Okay.
I got this for Christmas. I haven't watched it.
Oh, my God. Stop. Both of you.
I haven't watched it once.
Do you want to know how much you're supposed to wash it?
Every day?
Every day with soap and water.
Yikes.
And to completely sanitize weekly.
Mm.
I mean, you're probably over 40,000. You're probably worse than a toilet bowl right now. And I think of my son. He got his new one for Christmas, too. And I don't know. I mean, maybe Andrea's grabbing it. And, I mean, how hard is it for you guys to put it in the dishwasher at least once a day?
Just don't think about it.
I'm always using it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so
hydrated boys.
Why don't you get 3 and just that way they can rotate and you're always leaving the house with a fresh clean.
Well, that's a good idea, too, bro.
Isn't that an interesting stat, though? I mean,
that's crazy.
Now, I do this with my CPAP hoses, and I know what I'm supposed to do with my filters and my hoses and so on, and I never do it. In fact, I did one hose for years, and I should have, I don't know what I should have by now, pneumonia and death, but I don't. I mean, you run your risk with it, but, wouldn't it be funny if you found out that's really what your issue is, Mac? Not that I want to draw attention to your...
You think that's why I'm fat?
I haven't found a link with that. But it could be, the lack of it could be why Fritzy's fat. So I'm golfing with Ralph this weekend, and he's doing terrific.
Good.
Enjoying retirement. He's not missing us at all. But it reminded us of 16 years ago, our first round of golf, where I kept saying to him over and over again, Ralph, and he'd go, what? What the hell are we doing in Tennessee? I don't know. It's your hit, swing. Because I remember when I came here, first of all, I personally, I wasn't supposed to be here more than a year. I was supposed to go to Atlanta and take over for Neil Bortz. The way it kind of happened even for the year was the Dickey brothers' commitment to live and local, which was really smart from a sales standpoint as well as a rating standpoint. And then a really terrific general manager at the time, John Columbus. And what happened was they really liked Ralph and they really liked me, and they decided to hire both. Which was bad news for G. Gordon Liddy, who I think was the syndicated show.
Oh.
And that one was when the decision was made, we'll be live and local all the way through Phil. And thank God they did that, and thank God it's the only home my children have known. And I've loved living here. But I bring that up to say, I guess if you'd have, whether it was 15 years old or 25 years old, have it ever said to me, you're going to live in Tennessee, it would have been last on my list. Not just... didn't think of it. I don't think you ever thought you'd be in Boise, Idaho.
Never.
Idaho. Where I thought I would be is Chicago. And where I had a chance to go was WLS, and I eventually said no. I would have gone to Chicago. That's where I grew up. Interesting. All 3 of us are going to wish we were living in Illinois. After the news, when I tell you the story. But first things first, 10:30, the news starts now.
It is 10:30 on the dot this Tuesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got rolling roadblocks to fix potholes getting in the way. The right 2 lanes are blocked. I-40 westbound at Old Hickory Boulevard. That's the Highway 251, exit 199 in Bellevue. The EPA will propose new drinking water standards it says will save lives by limiting allowable levels of PFAS, or per-polyfluorinated substances, linked to illnesses such as cancer, to the lowest level ever. It'll mean higher utility bills for some water systems to be able to afford to meet the standard, if it's approved. The Federal Reserve has another inflation report to consider when it meets next week. Prices rose at a slower pace from January to February, 0.4% month over month, 6% year over year. The Fed has been raising interest rates to try to get inflation to 2%. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And Max, don't you dare say anything to me about bringing up irritable bowel. I showed the stigmata of my fungus toe live on the...
That's under your own volition.
Doesn't get grosser than that.
That right there will give you IBS.
Preds are home tonight, 7 o'clock, Bridgestone Arena against the Red Wings. Remember when that was a great game? You can watch on Bally Sports. Follow the bouncing quarterbacks. I'm pretty pleased that we're getting Derek Carr in New Orleans for the Saints, but I would have rather Jimmy G, and that's who the Raiders are going to look like they're going to get. Raiders are the winner. They get Jimmy G. What are the 49ers thinking? They lose Jimmy G, and they're going to go with Sam Darnold?
Well, they've got Brock Purdy, who's going to be back from that arm injury. They just drafted Trey Lance with the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, but
he hasn't played yet, really. So they've got 3 guys there.
Well, he played enough for me to go. I don't think that's
played 6 quarters, Michael. Come on.
All right,
6 quarters.
You still think he's in?
One of which was a monsoon. A monsoon.
All right. I still think they'd be better off with Sam Donaldson rather than Sam Darnold, but okay.
Well, you think Derek Carr is going to be good on the Saints.
This is a really he will be good.
9 wins.
I'll take the over for $100.
Absolutely.
And he calls himself a Christian. It's the stigmata in my toe. This is a significant date for birthdays. I mean, if you're born on March the 14th, you are in some kind of company.
All right.
First of all, Michael Caine, one of my favorites. You know, all the great work of Michael Caine. You know what comes to mind? Austin Powers, playing Austin Powers' father, which I thought he was hilarious. And not Inglourious Bastards.
Batman.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. When he's at the table with Steve Martin. May I go to the bathroom, please?
Yeah.
Why, of course. And you see him go... Michael Caine is 90 years old today.
All right. Wow.
I think there's nobody... I go through this all the time, and it's like what we did when it turned 2000, trying to say who was the greatest baseball player, who was the greatest this, who's the greatest comedian. If you want to go really brilliant, and my all-time favorite sports movie, 61, which he directed, his one-man show, which was his autobiographical life story, Billy Crystal, is just it for me. And Billy Crystal is 75 today. They call him the genius behind the genius. You know, Michael Jackson was a musical genius and a nut. Quincy Jones was a musical genius and an egomaniac.
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones is 90 years old today.
Brother Michael, I didn't know this.
Doesn't show any signs of going anywhere.
He's the one. He came up with the Sanford and Son theme.
Oh, it's a Thriller. That's the bandwidth. And, you know, Quincy Jones was working with a lot of the Motown artists early on as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then Simone Biles, 26 years old today. That's a lot of really good birthdays. And if it's your birthday, well, that's the biggest name of all. You, our listener. Happy birthday. I'm so glad you were born, and I'm so glad that you're listening. It's 10:34, and the news was brought to you by...
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
All right. Is that me or is it cutting off? At 10:37, somebody cut off Stephanie to Pietro. I definitely have a Pietro. At 10:37, we have cloudy skies at best. Some of you are still seeing some snow spitting up. 36 degrees in Franklin, 37 in Mount Juliet, linoleum in 36 in the borough. Downtown on Music Row, the statues are naked. Skies are cloudy. It's 36 degrees and feels like 30 at WTN. The market, Dow's up 466 at 32,285. Let's hope that holds. Grows. NASDAQ is up 271 at 11,460, and the S&P is up 79 at 3935. All three are in the green. The market is dramatically up at 1038. I'm Michael DelGiorno for King Insurance and Associates. I'm so glad I made the switch. I got actual better coverage on my home, its contents, and my automobiles, and I saved $1,500. Now, there's another way to look at this. I was loyal to an independent agent for a decade, only to find out they were overcharging me for inferior coverage. That was infuriating. And I started telling my listeners about it, and they started calling King, and they started making the switch. And they saved the same or more. Deb saved $1,800. Laura in the building saved $2,300. Here's the bottom line. Don't make the switch to King Insurance because I did or any listeners did. Make it because you should. They're an independent agent. That means they have multiple companies they can shop on your behalf, and they don't just say it, they do it. You got everything to save and nothing to lose. Better coverage, dramatically lower premiums. That frees up cash to afford inflation. So call King Insurance today and make the switch. 329-8121. 329-8121. That's 329-8121 or online at tkinginsurance.com. Not only was it a great read, that was exactly 60 seconds. This guy's a pro. He's a pro. I just got this from Red. You forgot to mention one other person born on March the 14th, Albert Einstein, which gives me two comments, quite frankly. First of all, Einstein's dead, so I usually wish birthdays to people that are still alive. Secondly, I don't even know why I even do birthdays, other than one day I was making fun of people on the radio that still do birthdays. Does anybody really still do birthdays?
Let's reach into the birthday box.
Right, and so then... Have you noticed it's kind of like, somebody called me one time and said, I've been listening for 8 years. What are naked statues?
Oh, wow.
Statues without clothes.
I don't know. One day I just,
Well, we got naked statues.
Downtown on Music Row, we got naked statues, cloudy sky. And then I just did it every day ever since.
Yeah.
Then one day I was making fun of linoleum in your house. So now every time I say the borough, I say linoleum in 36. I don't know why I do these things. But yes, it all began one day we were making fun of people that don't have anything to say on the radio that they're doing birthdays.
Yeah.
And then we've done it ever since. But I mean, I want to close with the obvious. Albert Einstein, genius. Michael Caine, genius. Billy Crystal, genius. Quincy Jones, genius. There's something to genius in March 14th, isn't there? Well, apparently not. according to that moan.
I thought Paul Giamatti does a great job as Albert Einstein in that Verizon commercial.
Until they ran it till we wanted to die. Aren't you guys curious why we should live in Illinois?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't do anything to interest you two. You know what?
I
Seriously,
forgot
do you have
about
the flag sound effect? Look at it. I forgot the camera's here now. The camera can see it. And he calls himself a Christian. Look at that, a double. I can't get you guys interested in anything. So I was telling the story of Ralph and I when we first met. And we both started 1 week apart here. And Ralph came from Greensboro, Spartanburg. Is that how I say it? And I came from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we were just like, did you ever think we'd live in Tennessee? Did you ever think we'd live? And I'm so grateful we do. The place I would have predicted I would have lived is Illinois, and have never gotten back there since childhood. And boy, do I wish I have. Illinois will become one of 3 states to require employers. Can you imagine the government? Well, after COVID, of course you can, right? The government closed every business in America and then took control of how it could reopen. I mean, but Illinois will become the 3rd state to require employers to offer paid time off. You ready for this? Drum roll? Do you have a drum roll? Wait a minute. No, before we do the drum roll. What do you think? I mean, if the government's going to get involved and meddle in business and tell you have to pay your employers for paid leave what would be some good ifs? If they've had a massive heart attack and they're bedridden, but the doctor thinks they'll recuperate in 6 to 8 weeks, even then I'd say hold their job for them, but you don't have to pay them.
Yeah.
It's not your responsibility that they got ill. Or maybe, how do we know what they ate their entire life? Yeah, come to think of it, he was always ordering a foot long for lunch,
But that's his employer's fault.
But so you start thinking about, all right, what would be the kind of things if government's going to meddle and tell business how to operate? All right, you got to pay them paid leave. And what would we fill it in with? I kind of went blank because I wouldn't meddle at all. But if you suspend the belief it's okay to meddle with businesses, all right, it's got to be something temporary and serious or something, right?
Yeah, a child.
All right, drum roll. You ready for what it is? Illinois has become the third state to require employers to offer paid leave for any reason. The hell is that?
What?
For any reason.
It's a real, I feel really comfortable in my bed right now.
Yeah.
And you know how you get in that perfect position, everything's perfect, and I feel like if I get up, it'll ruin it.
Yeah.
So, I think to go on paid leave for 3 months. My daughters are graduating. It's my wife's 50th birthday. We'd like to go to Europe for a month.
Fritz needs scratchings.
I mean, what
and
the
lots of them.
What the hell? And doesn't it just make your jaw drop?
Wait.
I mean, I have a high work ethic. If I was in Illinois right now, I am gone, pecan.
So that's all you have to say. You just give any reason?
Any reason.
With any company?
And signed into law. According to the Associated Press, beginning January 1st, Illinois employers, I mean, think of all the reasons why businesses have been fleeing California, New York, and Illinois. I mean, they are the tripod of blue, right? Add this one to the list. They must offer workers paid time off based on hours worked with no need to explain the reason for their absence.
Abbott Laboratories will soon be moving to Tennessee.
What was that middle part with in correlation with how much they've actually worked?
Yeah, but
okay, so there's a limit to this. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. Pay me."
I'm at 16 years. By that loose written standard. I mean, I'm sure there's some fine print, but could I just? I feel a little uncomfortable today. I think I'll take 16 years off.
I feel uncomfortable.
Or I don't know. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, I could go back, but how many people like me have done that? You've been laying in bed going, I think I'm having a massive heart attack. Should I tell my wife? Should we go to the emergency room? I've heard the expression, it feels like an elephant sitting on you. You lose a little bit of feeling in the arm. Your jaw can start aching. A squeezing sensation. And all of a sudden, it all goes away and you go,
and it's all better.
I can't be the only one.
Baxter International in Deerfield, with its 4,500 employees,
coming to Tennessee,
thinks the new law in Illinois sucks.
Well, I guess they
don't like paying payroll taxes. They're headed to Nashville.
Oh my!
Wow.
By the way, I did have somebody on the super text line think my stigmata and my fungus toe is demonic activity.
I saw that.
Well,
and you know what?
I think you're right.
Talk back with Bob Larson. Who's on the line? Me. Who's me? Knock, knock.
Me.
Who's there? Bob Larson. I'm Bob Larson. You're not Bob Larson. Demon, what is your name? Fungus. Where are you? In the toe. Why did you go to the toe? He used to like to kick field goals, so I took his toe.
That's what did it.
You're listening to Talk Back with Bob Larson. We have a toe fungus stigmata on the line, but it's really demonic. Demon? Yes. Are you Larry King? Just Maine and Nevada mandate earned paid time off and allowed employees the freedom to decide how to use it. But Illinois' law is further reaching, unencumbered by any limits based on business size. I mean, you got to be, you know what? You got to be nuts to run a business. And then, of course, people are going to take advantage of this. Of course, it's going to eventually, cost them so much money, they're going to have to do cutbacks, or if it's going to de-incentivize hiring. I mean, government's always meddling. I saw a great, he was on with Johnny. Yeah. People forget, Johnny was a crazy liberal doing home porn. But when he had Ronald Reagan on, he was always respectful. And how's this craziness going to stop? I wonder if did I shave that clip?
Homeborn.
Well, you know, that was scarring for me. By the way, I do this with my wife, and she never remembers, so I'm going to do it with Ken. Ken, remind me I need to get razor blades. I need to go to Target. Why, does that sound odd to you that I would ask you?
Yes, it does.
I'm trying to find the clip of Johnny. I mean, it was a great clip. It was Johnny and Ronald Reagan. Yeah. I thought I put it on my Facebook wall. I'm almost positive I did. Why can't I find it?
Brother Michael, maybe.
And Johnny was asking him, how are we going to get out of this mess? And Reagan, of course, looks at him like he's a nut. And he goes, well, that's the first problem. Why are you looking at government to solve your problems?
Bingo.
Government is the problem. And Johnny was like, wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, the government's not here to help. Oh, wow. Okay, here it is. Listen to this. Do you have me turned on?
Yep.
Oh, you know you do. All right, here we go. Oh. My gosh. Why does nothing ever go my way? Where are you?
You got a stigmata on your toe.
All right, here we go. Why is that doing that?
A moment ago, you asked, about people and feeling not only confused, but low and down in America. First of all, the American people, if they would just take a little inventory and look around, you triple our troubles, and we're better off than any other people on earth. And we've asked so much of government, and we've gotten in the habit over the last 40 years of thinking that government has the answers. There's very little that government can do as efficiently and as economically as the people can do themselves. And if government would shut the doors and sneak away for about 3 weeks, we'd never miss them.
We'd never miss them. I don't know why we were hearing that strange music with it, but Johnny was asking a serious question. We're in a real mess. What are we going to do? And he's like, why are you looking at the government? Government breaks things. It doesn't fix things. Look at it in Illinois. I mean, the three of us, if we were on the air in Illinois, let's just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable.
I'm not paying you to go home. Oh, yes, you are. Well, give me one good reason. I don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the
law?
So the one place I thought I would live.
There's a lot of little things with this that make it not what you guys are saying, but yes, it is. It's still kind of like that, but not really.
Oh, you got to jump through hoops.
What are you going to go, Tommy? I mean, go closet liberal? What are you doing?
No, it's not that. It's just like read the law. It's not what you're saying it is, really. But it's pretty much the same as PTO. You just don't really have to give a reason. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah, but no reason necessary.
Yeah, which
I mean, like that.
Yeah, you don't have to give a reason.
So
you still have to accrue it the same way. You still have to work.
Well,
you still have to be 40 hours.
You used to have to have a reason too. I mean, like when I had my brain injury.
Yeah.
All right, that was a good reason. And I remember Allison sat me down. And by the way, may I say, Allison was right and I should have listened to her. And I was like, you know what? Believe it or not, if I was having a problem, I would say so. Now, Ken, of course, was enjoying this because I'm on the air with a brain interview, and I was interviewing horses that came in last at the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, you are.
That's awesome.
That's really not anything to laugh at, you sick guys.
You were buying horses, too.
But, I mean, at least that would have been a reason. Okay, you have accrued enough time to take some time to get better, and it would have been helpful. I mean, there were times I would do 20-minute monologues, and then Dan would walk in. I'd go, I have no idea what I just said.
Yes.
Oh, it's great. I had no recollection of it whatsoever because of the portions of my brain that were damaged that weren't damaged. So I didn't have any executive function, but I could do all that fine. So when I did all the testing at Vanderbilt, I had a pretty good idea that I could handle through the test results being on the air, whereas give me a to-do list and I'd probably implode or loop. So, but you had to have a reason. I mean, why you act like I'm not? No reason.
Well, at first I was like, you can just.
Well, of course I'm using some hyperbole. You can't get away with 16 years, Mac. Look, true or false? You got irritable bowel, right?
That's true.
Okay. That's all that matters today's show. Did I mention the Preds are home against the Red Wings and Jimmy G's going to the Raiders and Sam Darnold, not Sam Donaldson, is going to the 49ers? We did do that.
Samuel Darnold's grandfather was named Richard Hammer, and he was an amazing he was an Olympian athlete, but
we really do need to get you on sports radio. You're like my son. You're like a savant.
But he didn't go by Richard. He went by the other name for Richard. And
you can say Dick.
Dick Hammer.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
And I think he was imprisoned in England, but that's another story. All right, when we come back, our president never goes a day without a flub, right? This time he accidentally leaked Jimmy Carter is dying. And then we'll go beyond that. I always make the comparison people think Joe Biden is Jimmy Carter. I say he's LBJ. This could get beyond figurative to literal if a Kennedy gets into the race. That and more coming up in mere seconds. Just a short brief break for our advertisers. And we'll be back with more stimulating talk radio. I'm Michael DelGiorno for Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. Jeff Eddy and his team are simply the best, and the best is not my opinion. They do residential, light commercial. They service all brands, all technologies, conventional and geothermal. They're recognized by Rheem, one of the leading providers, as providing customers with the highest level of year-round comfort and service. That's just what I would describe. And when something goes wrong, they're there. To give me the wisdom and information and everything I need to make the tough decision between repair and replacement, they're there. Whether geothermal or conventional makes sense, they're there. They're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi for electric heat and air, and they're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Whether it's maintenance, repair, or replacement, simply the best and the most affordable. Don't forget, it's almost time to do your maintenance on your air conditioners before we head into summer. Can't exceed $125 a home no matter how many units you have. And when it comes to replacement, we take the sting away with interest-free financing with approved credit. Same as cash. Whether it's maintenance, repair, or replacement, trust who I trust. Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. 784-4424, 784-4424, online at efficienthvac.net.
11 o'clock on the dot this Tuesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and they're filling some potholes, slowing everybody down 40 westbound in Bellevue. You got the two lanes blocked right there before Bellevue Newsom Station, Highway 70 South. And some folks are telling us it's snowing where they are in Middle Tennessee. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. The EPA will propose new regulation that limits a group of chemicals linked to conditions such as cancer to the lowest level ever. If approved, it'll mean higher utility bills so systems can afford to meet the standard, but officials say it will save lives. Apparently, they say this list of cancer, or rather this list of levels of this chemical they're trying to prevent is responsible for cancer, heart attacks, and birth complications. The rate of inflation slowed down in February. Prices for the things we need going up 0.4% month over month, 6% year over year.
Between February of 2022 and last month, the all items index was up 6%. The annual rate in January was 6.4%, suggesting a slight cooling off of inflation. Food, furniture, and recreation were all higher, but the cost of housing accounted for over 70% of last month's rise in prices. The Labor Department reports that natural gas and heating oil actually got cheaper last month.
The Fed will take this into consideration during next week's meeting when it could decide to raise interest rates again. Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta plans to lay off 10,000 employees and not fill 5,000 open positions. CEO Mark Zuckerberg making the announcement in a message to staff saying it's part of his effort to make 2023 the company's year of efficiency, trimming $5 billion in expenses. It comes just months after Meta's last big layoff announcement, letting go 11,000 workers in November. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I'm thinking about creating a new feature. You know how we have Mac Talks when Mac has a serious question? Of
Brother
course,
Mac.
we may have to create one now for when he has a serious criticism for how I handled a story, which did not bother me at all. I actually loved it.
Okay, good.
But like my brain is wired such. I can do whatever you ask. Like when I used to fill in, some people think this was me at my best, filling in for Michael Savage. I was like a serious talk show host. There was no real me involved. And like right now, I am loaded to do serious geopolitical, historical, foundationed analysis of a presidential election. And yet I'm also wired to say, who kicked out the drywall in the toilet stall in our men's room?
Yeah.
Now, listen, I know you have irritable bowel, and some people say, why do you keep bringing that up?
Including me.
I don't know why I keep bringing it up. But if I have any problem, it's the exact opposite. So I've had some struggles. You know, I actually use Lamaze breathing. I have to, but who had such a struggle that they kicked out a wall? It reminds me of was that on Austin Powers too? Yeah, it was the Lucky Charms one.
Yeah, baby.
Remember he attacks the guy on the toilet?
Yeah.
And then he has to come out after fighting with him? Because it was the one that they're always after me, Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Dr. Evil sent the one henchman in the toilet. And it was Tom Arnold in the stall next to him. Hey, man, you all right in there? Come on, give me a courtesy flush. He's in there fighting with this guy. But somebody has kicked out the drywall in one of the stalls. I mean, somebody really was having a struggle in there.
Kicked it right out.
That, or I want to do something with my audience if I can. And only people, this is like a ultimate VIP listener privilege. Only people listening at 11:04 on Tuesday, March the 14th will know how to do this. I want you as an experiment to watch All Quiet on the Western Front right before you go to bed. Now, if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, start the movie at 8 because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it's scarring. I mean, it's intimately scarring. But when you do it right before you go to sleep, I want to see if you start having dreams. Like I had the most amazing dream of my life. And I was behind enemy lines. It was more like a city warfare. They were trying to clear us all out of the city. And I had snuck into the back of a train where they were filling it with supplies. And I was hid in there. And then it took me to the next town. Then I got out. And then there were the troops there. And I had but it was like I'm telling you, it was like an epic Hollywood adventure dream.
Sounds pretty sick.
Yeah. It was. So, and I'm wondering if it had to do with watching the movie right before I fell asleep. So just those of you listening right now as an experiment, if you have not seen All Quiet on the Western Front, trench warfare, World War I from the German perspective. Watch it and then fall asleep and then report to me on the super text line what your dream was. And see if you had I had like an epic movie dream last night after watching that movie. And let the experiment begin now. Thank you.
I'll totally watch it this weekend.
By the way, this could be a Mac talk. Vasectomies and March Madness. They go together kind of like wine and cheese. I have that. Or I can do the politics. What do you want? This is how I'm wired. I can do all this stuff. I can do dreams. I can do bathroom struggles. Or I can do serious politics. Or if you want, vasectomies and brackets.
Surprises, Brother Michael.
Let's play with the multi-personality disorder guy.
This super texter says, you guys really need to be talking about the new legislation that just got introduced to pull Tennessee into a new central digital currency. If that passes, you can kiss all our freedoms goodbye.
I just had a dollar bill sign appear on my other pinky toe with fungus. That more straight out. Hey, we got 1 more hour to go. Don't miss a little or you'll miss a lot. News was brought to you by... This is strange weather. Why are all those clipping and why don't we fix them instead of that happening over and over again?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I don't know what.
Did I just say that out loud? I was just thinking that and it came out. The weather's been so crazy. And so I made plans to golf tomorrow with my doctor. And I got really worried this morning when I woke up. But tomorrow, beautiful, sunny with a high of almost 60, 57. That'll actually be perfect. 67 the next day. But oh my gosh, tonight we'll be dipping to some below freezing lows. And it's pretty cold right now. We have 36 degrees at the Puffy Muffin in Brentwood. It is 35 to the north in Hendersonville. And downtown on Music Row, cloudy skies, 36 degrees in Nashville. The market, not as high as it was, but still doing good. Dow's up 351, NASDAQ's up 241, and the S&P is up 66. All three are in the green. The market is up at 1107. Loan Pronto! We love our veterans. And if you have a VA loan, in this housing market, where home values continue to rise, homeowners with VA loans have access to a ton of instant cash to do a ton of smart things with. I'm Michael DelGiorno, and if you need cash now to pay off high-interest credit card debts, you need to get a check in your hand for 80, 90 grand, this is the moment. And Loan Pronto is the place. We're helping our veterans every day get the money they need with a quick and easy zero-cost cash-out refi with zero closing costs. And with a VA loan, here's what's really cool. You can access up to 100% of your home's value. Use that money to free up cash flow to afford inflation. And then, of course, most importantly, get rid of all debt if possible, but any attached to a variable rate or high-interest credit card debt as we head into a recession. We can get this all done in 2 weeks. Most homeowners that do it are freeing up $800 to $1,000 of cash a month and locking in really low rates. So our all-digital process makes it fast and easy. We're doing these loans with super low APRs, and we love working with our veterans. So find out what your options are. 499-5780. Call Loan Pronto today. 499-5780. That's 499-5780. Online at loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender at MLS 166-1781. Subject to lender approval. Well, thank God after 16 years, you guys know me well enough. Just some days you can only beat the issues so much without snapping. I think what snapped me today was the fashion designer going, I think that's Joe Biden's Sam Britton wearing my designer gown. And, of course, when you read the story, you find out that, she lost her trunk. And apparently she didn't lose it. He stole it. I mean, this guy was like, why is he able to steal all this stuff and not go to jail? Read that and find out if he's on paid leave. That was a joke only Mac will get. This is one of those stories where I think we're being too hard on the president. First of all, somebody's going to have to fill in some blanks for me. Well, Mac, you've got a critical spirit today. You fill them in. Biden accidentally revealed a previously unknown detail about former President Carter's health. No, he didn't. I mean, he revealed a detail about his funeral plans, but not his health. We all know he's dying and he's in hospice care, right? And Jimmy Carter's, everybody's so used to saying this that we don't, because people always do the same thing. Oh, worst president ever, but a really godly good man. No, but he really was. He was a good, godly guy whose policies were certainly not the right policies for any time, let alone his time. So, everybody appreciates the life of Jimmy Carter, and everybody has their thoughts and prayers with him and his family. But we all know he's in hospice care, and we all know he's dying. I don't know why the president accidentally revealed something previously unknown. All the president said was he asked me to do his eulogy. And then it was the president who said, oh, excuse me, I probably shouldn't have said that. No, excuse me, he probably shouldn't have asked you, but I don't get what the big deal is. The real thing that's surfacing is, and I would say probably going back to his first news conference, which we had to wait 62 days for. And it wasn't, in that news conference is the famous interaction with a leftist mainstream media giving him a hard time over the border. Look, we're hearing reports you're separating kids and families, just like you criticized, and Kamala Harris really criticized as crimes against humanity, all during a presidential campaign. We hear you got kids back in cages, and you're not allowing us to have access to these camps. Will you restore transparency? Now, I got to tell you, the president's response is one of the most amazing I've ever heard. He basically said, we're in the process of moving all these people, and once we get them all moved, then I'll restore access. That'd be like asking a serial killer, tell us where the bodies are buried. Well, as soon as I move the bodies, I'll tell you where I have them buried. I understand why that's all anybody heard. And then that went on to be a 90-day debacle before Kamala Harris, who he put in charge, would ever go to the border and had to admit to the world that we've incited this. Don't come to America or else, which was a disaster for Democratic attacks on Donald Trump and policies that have failed. But it was later in that news conference where they were talking about Afghanistan that was very revealing and ended up giving Afghanistan back to the Taliban, inevitably. A lot of famous things happened in that first news conference, but that first one was the poison apple being handled to Kamala Harris. And this could be me, and Mac may find where I'm wrong in this or I'm going overboard in this, but I do think it might have been Podesta's plan to use the old man hiding in a basement in a what they would call shadow campaign to save the democracy. Some of you might call an unethical or illegal, it wasn't illegal, but it was certainly unethical, stealing of an election. And you got to remember that this, first of all, Podesta didn't call it a presidency. He called it an administrative state headed by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on Inauguration Day. I thought that was very significant. Secondly, you were in an outsider referendum election. An outsider referendum election against all incumbents that produced Donald Trump, an outsider and a businessman. And it would have produced Bernie Sanders, a socialist. But they didn't allow it, just like they didn't allow it 4 years earlier with Hillary Clinton using superdelegates. But what did you end up with? This is the part everybody's never connected the dots with. The ultimate insider candidacies in an outsider election. Because you ended up with Joe Biden linked to 8 years of Barack Obama, the Obama camp, the Obama fundraising apparatus, to the foot soldiers, to the strategists, along with Kamala Harris, which was the Hillary Clinton candidate, Hillary Clinton bundlers, Hillary Clinton boots on the ground and strategists. You ended up with a ticket that you would probably say, well, that has to unite the party. Well, in normal circumstances, it would have. But the Democrat Party was being split by socialists and democratic socialists like Bernie Sanders and AOC, a real movement of Justice Democrats, targeting Democrats that would have much preferred Bernie Sanders. So they didn't really unite their party, but they did get the two big apparatuses of the party from grass tops to grassroots in the Clintons and the Obamas, in Biden and Kamala Harris. And managed to get a record amount of votes using an old man in a basement who didn't even campaign for president. Now, that made a lot of people believe that the plan, use Biden to get in, show Biden the door, and hand it over to Kamala. Why? Because Podesta is ultimately a Clinton guy. Remember, his first 8 years were 8 years of Bill Clinton. Then 8 years of Barack Obama. Now going on 3 years of Joe Biden. If that's true, and we'll never know, in that first news conference, Joe Biden went rogue. He broke the script. And he literally handed the poison apple. I mean, Afghanistan was a poison apple. The border's a poison apple. The economy's a poison apple. That was at that time, because don't forget, the first thing Joe Biden did once elected was walked across the street and did 29 executive orders and 39 executive reorders, cancellations. So he erased all the policies of the Trump administration. That's why on that day I told you, I can tell you what all your future problems are. You're going to have gun problems. You're going to have border problems. You're going to have economic problems. You're going to have energy prices problems. Because I know I lived it for 8 years with Barack Obama. Now, nobody would ever have marketed it this way, but at that moment, his campaign really was make America elitist again. Make America broke again. Because he just erased everything that Donald Trump made America great with. It was a complete reversal of every policy in this country. And now you, of course, can see all the effects. But nobody gets how he went rogue that day. And he knew the first one that was going to blow up in their face was the border. And he handed the poison apple to Kamala Harris. That sent a message, I believe, and I could be wrong. I'm completely speculating. I think he sent a clear message to John Podesta and to Klain and others. I'm not going anywhere. You may have used me as a Trojan horse to get this election, but I'm not going to exit so that you can get Kamala Harris, who couldn't win the election because she's unlikable, in this White House, which I think was their original intent. But she failed miserably. Could have been payback, too. Don't forget, it was Kamala Harris that shot Joe in the kneecaps over racism. That's when she catapulted to tops in the polls. Joe Biden himself, 4th in Iowa, 7th in New Hampshire. His campaign was over until a deal was cut in South Carolina late. Why do I bring that up? Because the same Joe Biden that went rogue 62 days in still hasn't gone rogue enough to announce he's running for president. Now we're lingering late. He lingers another 3 to 4 months, and this is unheard of lingering. I mean, I could understand lingering till after the midterm elections. That's 5 months ago. Why is he still not announced? Now, often is the analogy that he's Jimmy Carter. And I've always said, no, Joe Biden is not Jimmy Carter. The economy is going to look like Jimmy Carter, but he's Lyndon Baines Johnson. See, LBJ didn't run for re-election because the economy was doing terrible and his policies were failing, though he had gotten us deep into the Vietnam War, and that had divided America, and he was on the wrong end of history and the wrong end of the moment. LBJ didn't run for re-election because he couldn't win. If he ran, Bobby Kennedy was going to landslide him. And that would have been enormously I don't even think it would have been divisive for the party, quite frankly. That's how much everybody was behind Bobby Kennedy. So he stepped aside to avoid the embarrassment. He stepped aside because it was inevitable he would step aside if he ran or didn't. And that's where Joe Biden, a lot of people think, is. He can't win. I actually disagree. I think he's likely to win. Crazy as that sounds. But let me tell you something. I've been dealing with crazy my whole life. You want a golf ball to go up, you swing down, not up. But I always say, no, he's LBJ. Why? Because Lyndon Baines Johnson he'd have been slaughtered in the primary process by Robert Kennedy. And now that figurative geopolitical historical analysis is about to become literal. Remember the audio I played for you earlier in the show? All these Democrats, other than the guy that said he's 10 times better than Trump. He didn't have anything substantive to say. Most hardworking Democrats are going, this guy hasn't done anything. Now, their frustration, I don't see anybody, though, with any fresh new ideas. In other words, they're really not drooling for Gavin Newsom. I think they would love the governor in Maryland if they get a chance to see him. But could it be another Kennedy that is going to LBJ Biden? Hang on. I got the story. Actually, I got the tweet next on WTN. I'm Michael DelGiorno, and I want to talk to you about PAI Medical in Brentwood. First of all, PAI Medical We Grow Hair has the finest surgeons, latest technology and results, not to mention many, many non-surgical solutions that are really amazing, more affordable, and work. That shouldn't surprise you. We're an epicenter of entertainment. But if you want to look better and feel better about yourself, you can make this the year you grow your hair back. We're the only company in all of the state that has PAI's multi-unit hair grafting procedure, which is a trademark procedure that gives you more hair in one procedure. What's the value of that? It saves you a ton of time and a ton of money, and no one else has it, and it's backed by the only company I trust. Your looks are too important to go anywhere else. And it all begins with a free private consultation. Free, no obligation, and quite frankly, fascinating. What's best for you? Surgical, non-surgical? Find out. It's absolutely free. Natural results from the company you can trust. Get your hair back. PAI Medical in Brentwood. Call 376-6010 today. 376-6010. That's 376-6010 or online at wegrowhair.com.
New trouble for the higher-ups at Silicon Valley Bank. President Biden's going to take executive action today against gun ownership. New inflation report. We'll dissect that for you. Coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Somebody sent me on the Super Text hotline a great cartoon. You got this frou-frou dog in the back seat looking out the window. This man in a tight dress with gloves, blonde hair, all this makeup, and, of course, a beard because it's really a man. And a woman getting off her motorcycle, changing his tire while he's standing there all the grateful. I thought, man.
And he just won a wrestling match.
Oh, unbelievable. All right, so now let me get to the point. So it took me 20 minutes to kind of give you a vision that no one ever gives you. I actually think strategically, if you were doing politics for a living, you should be concerned that Joe Biden is LBJ, not Jimmy Carter. But the can't win usually applies to someone who would beat him, and they prevent that from happening, so he technically isn't. But I often joke about that, and then this morning I'm reading this tweet. Help me decide whether to run for president. Visit teamkennedy.com to volunteer or contribute. If it looks like I can raise the money and mobilize enough people to win, I'll jump into the race. And if I run, my top priority will be to end the corrupt merger between state and corporate power that has ruined our economy, shattered the middle class, polluted our landscapes and waters. Now he's going to get all environmental. Poisoned our children and robbed us of our values and freedoms. Together, we can restore America's democracy. It's interesting. He's already got a slogan, and that's Robert Kennedy Jr. And wouldn't it be very Nostradamus, DelGiorno-esque, if you will, for what if Kennedy arises? But I think what they need to worry about is, and this is where I think they'll finally get all behind Biden as their best bet. Here's a Reuters poll, just to conclude this whole topic. Democrats, it was taken last month, late in February, and it found out if we really had an open and free primary process, or technically, if Biden should decide not to run, here's what would happen according to the poll. Now, again, I could add, help me, I always forget his name, and Mac, you never forget it, the new governor of Maryland. I think he's a real...
Wes Moore.
Wes Moore. I think he's a real Barack Obama. Here's a guy that could go from nowhere to president, like Barack Obama did. I mean, Barack Obama went from community organizing to state legislature. He was only in the United States Senate, I think, 50 days when he announced his presidency, and straight to the White House. I think he's got that. I don't think Gavin Newsom is the play. I know Pete Buttigieg isn't the play. Kamala Harris will never be the play, and she's worse to play today than 4 years ago when she wasn't the play. So who is the play? Well, whenever anybody asks me that question, and it's a two-pronged answer. One, Biden has to not run, or you have to have a free, fair primary where everybody had a shot. If that were the case, he would have won in 2016. He would have won in 20. And my guess is he'd win again in 2024. And that's Bernie Sanders. And guess what this poll shows a month ago? Bernie Sanders is still running second for the presidential nomination behind Joe Biden. Behind him is Kamala Harris, and behind her is Pete Buttigieg. Sanders' biggest backers for the Democrat presidential nomination in 2016 and 2020 were young voters. Twice they pushed him to finish second. I don't even know how the Hill writes that with a straight face. If they didn't manipulate the primary process with superdelegates, he would have defeated Hillary Clinton, and they saw that coming. That's what they saw coming again when Kamala Harris fell. Well, Biden fell first, then Kamala Harris fell. Pete was the last one to fall from grace. And they knew it was going to be Bernie again. And so they crafted the deal with the Black Caucus in South Carolina, and then hid the old man in the basement till he won. I got news for you. If the process was fair and accurate and open, Bernie'd get the nomination. I think they're trying to figure all this out. And I think what they keep coming back to, we don't know who we're running against. If it's Donald Trump, we're safe with Biden. If it's DeSantis, maybe not as safe, but we don't have anything safer. But what ought to be obvious to everyone is, why hasn't the president made it official yet? 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 Why hasn't the president made it I think they're still trying to figure it out. And I think they have it figured out. We got to be careful, or it'll be Bernie again.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we've got one more night of freezing temperatures before we warm up a tad. Might have some rain toward the end of the week. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. New trouble for Silicon Valley Bank. Fox News says the Justice Department's now investigating its collapse, looking into stock trades made by financial officers days before. President Biden will take executive action today, making it harder for Americans to buy guns by increasing background checks and preventing firearms dealers without licenses from selling guns. New inflation report. Alexis Christoforous tells us.
We'll start with the good news, which is that inflation is cooling a little bit, but still uncomfortably high. Consumer prices up 6% year over year, month over month up 0.4%. And when we dig deeper into this report, we find that rent, shelter, which made up about 70% of the rise, up 8% year over year. So shelter costs continue to be a big issue for Americans.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
That was the edit, man. That's what I could do. He sent me a cut-off recording.
Oh, that's beautiful. By the way, I was just having fun with it, giggling and joking. But I had read research it, and you're absolutely right. So in Illinois, basically you're getting 1 hour off per 40.
Yeah.
So the most you could possibly, I mean, even in a crazy world, is work that out to 6.5 days off free with no paid
Didn't trust
leave
my
with
research. Needed read.
Yeah, I got doubled from him.
Gotcha.
So after further review, A, I got matrixed. B, I was just having fun with the story, and it was more fun to do hyperbole and tell a little Ralph story. Wished I'd gone to Illinois where I could just, for any reason, leave forever. But yeah, no, that is really much to do about nothing, isn't it? On second thought, I've seen Illinois do a lot of dumb things. That's the least of it. Oh, their coffee's awful. Only me and Ken can make a decent cup of coffee around here. 36 degrees. We have not moved 1 degree since I signed on at 9 o'clock. Mount Juliet, you did. You started at 36. Now you're 38. The borough started at 36. You're just 37. Downtown, we started at 36, and now we're 37. Still feels like 30. It's cold. The market is hot. The Dow is, I think, what did it peak at earlier? 440, and it's still up 376. Now it could rally down. It could rally up even more. But right now, the Dow's up 376. NASDAQ's up 250. The S&P's up 68. That's good. All three are in the green, and the market is up at 11:37. I want to talk to you about Blue Umbrella Medical of Middle Tennessee. If you're frustrated with healthcare that's really sick care, no answers, no relief, just a new diagnosis you're stuck living with. Dr. Jay Hitson and her team of talented physicians and MD are different. We use state-of-the-art lab testing to get you real answers. We think you deserve them. Then you're going to notice some very advanced diagnostic equipment. That's because we want to get to the root cause. And then we're going to treat that root cause with cutting-edge regenerative treatments. What does that do? Relief. Lasting relief. Take neuropathy, for example, acute, chronic, and crippling. Once we identify that root cause, we're going to treat it with cutting-edge regenerative treatments, and it's able to stimulate, reactivate, and regenerate the damaged tissue and nerve endings. Relief and lasting relief, covered by insurance, and it all begins with a free consultation. So if you or someone you love or care for is suffering from neuropathy, actual health care with real results, you need the innovative integrative health solutions of Blue Umbrella. Call today and set up your free consultation. 610-6937. 610-6937. Online at blueumbrellamedical.com. You know, Mac, we could have a Mac talk about vasectomies. There's a topic I can't get in trouble with. No, I heard this story yesterday or the day before. Vasectomies are safe and reliable contraception method. Now, I only know this because, it was just the oddest of conclusions for me and Andrea. So, Andrea and I do everything right. Best friends, attracted, fall in love, keep Christ at the center.
Oh, you guys were best friends first? That's cool.
Yeah, by far.
That's awesome.
In fact, the older you get, that's really, frankly, all that matters day in and day out.
Yeah,
and then,
of course,
you got
of course.
You got a co-parent. Man, you better.
Yeah.
I would say ultimately when I identified Andrea and I said, "Oh, that's my wife." Well, I knew the moment I saw her, and then I fought it for 4 years. But I knew when I saw her, I as much as I know my own voice, I know God's voice, and that's your wife. And I could have just proposed that day, and I'd get credit for those 5 years, but I didn't. I ultimately married her. Most people think because of the way she looks and her beauty. Really, it was her character. And then we were best friends. I mean, we had everything in common. We were always having a blast, and it was just never ever fought ever. Everything's just perfect. And so then you get married, and that's what you're supposed to do. And then it's time, that you express your love in creation of life. That's the next extension of this. Now we want to have children. Well, it didn't happen. And that was a long struggle. And then, some funny stories about, I'd have to do something in a cup and then bring it to some place. Do you strap it in the in the seatbelt? Yeah, I'm driving around in a 2-seater Mercedes convertible with my sperm. And it just, every month was just this emotional high hope followed by
it's gotta be tough.
Deep sorrow. And so finally I looked at her and I said, you know what, Andrea? There is nothing that makes you love your child that has anything to do. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It'd be neat to see you and a daughter or see me and a son, but it's not about biology. Let's adopt. We'll pour our lives into these kids. That's all that matters. You don't even love your kid because it came from you. You love your kid because of whose it is.
Yeah.
And so then we tried to adopt, and then Korea wouldn't give me a baby. I didn't meet the height-weight ratio.
What?
South Korea basically said, you're too fat to have one of our kids. I was like, it was through Dylan Adoption, Dylan International. So we had completely
height-weight ratio.
This went on for like 4 years, and we just, finally completely gave up. Just completely gave up.
That's tragic.
And then, boom, my wife's acting crazy. I go to the pharmacy. I describe to the pharmacist what's happening to my wife. She points to an aisle and says, get a pregnancy test. Your wife's pregnant. I try to explain to her that can't happen. We can't have children. I think there's something else going on. And then I heard crying from the bathroom, and she was pregnant. And God wasn't just faithful. He gave us 2. And then, because we just presumed it was a miracle from God and a gift from God, we didn't even think about it. And then we got pregnant first cycle with Nick. Then we were like, oh, when you're healed, you're healed. We better, we better do something. And naturally, my wife looks to me and says, you're going to do it. And I went, a vasectomy? Why do I have to do it? Well, the answer was real simple. Even though Andrea had a C-section with the twins and then a C-section with Nick, St. John's Hospital would not perform that as a Catholic hospital. So we waited. By the way, my wife is so morbid. We waited until Nick passed the sudden infant death syndrome range before she would allow it.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's like, I think he's going to live. Go. And so, I'm not a scaredy cat. My mom likes to act like I am, but I'm not. They all think I'm a hypochondriac. I really don't like to have things wrong with me. But I grinned and I did it, and I was a man. And I was fine until, because it's really, the vasectomy itself is nothing. You don't even feel it. The needle therapy, so that you don't feel it, is something. And don't let anybody ever tell you it isn't. So the guy does the first needle, and you've been kicked in the groin, right? Before? And
unfortunately.
You know how it just starts, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. Well, that's kind of what it's like. Only the needle's doing it. And so it's just getting worse and worse. And I'm trying to be a man. I'm not going to show my, because, the whole thing, whether they mean to do it or not, wives will do this. I gave birth. Don't act like that. Now, but then Andrea is also your best friend, so she's right there in there watching the procedure. Her head's over there staring and all that. At one point she was staring, she's going, wow, you don't want to see this. Who says that to their husband in the middle of a procedure? So I lean up and I look. I'm telling you, there was a needle this long stuck in me, and it was going to my heartbeat. I was like, you're right. I don't want to see that. So then the doctor looks at me and goes, are you right-handed or left-handed? I said, well, I'm kind of ambidextrous. I swing left-handed, but everything else I do. He goes, what do you write with? My right hand. Oh, this is going to hurt more. Why would you tell me that?
Yeah, just get it done.
And he wasn't lying. Then he did the right side. It hurt even more.
Wow.
And then nothing hurt. And then while he's doing everything, you're talking to him. I could hear it, something like that, like he's tying the knot. Then I'm smelling something. He's soldering and put you back together, sew you up, and you leave.
Wow.
But here's the thing, and this is what's going to make this story a reality. It was the needles were bad. It was nothing like childbirth. The women go through a far much worse thing. The needles were bad, but the surgery was a breeze. And then afterwards, you would think, oh, I'm going to be hurting. No, you'd go golfing.
Really?
Wow. And that's the problem, that people don't, because the only thing that usually stops us is pain. Think about it.
It's true.
With no pain, you're like, oh, I'll go work out. Oh, no pain. Oh, I'll go golfing, or I'll go jogging. You know, and that's when you get problems. And the problems, which the story is going to tell you about, can be graphic. So the doctor was like, I want you to keep this iced, and I want you to stay off your feet. At least promise me for 48 hours, even though you feel great. Just find something to do. And then they go through a laundry list of things you could possibly do, because they know you'll get into trouble feeling normal. Well, that's where this story comes in. Vasectomies are safe and reliable, according to research, and this is the perfect time to get one. March Madness. The study examined data from 94,082 vasectomies performed between 2006. Oh my gosh, I'm in this study.
Wow.
I think mine was late 2006. 2006 and 2021. The survey found that only 0.12% of men experienced chronic scrotal pain as a result. Blood clots, I didn't even know that was a possibility. In the tissue occurred 1.3% of the time. They're very reliable. They're very safe. The problems we get into is when we move too quickly or exert ourselves too soon. And that's when you can get enormous swelling and complications, which is why they say, and I got to tell you something, March Madness is the only thing that has survived.
Yeah.
Everybody else has kind of disinvited me or done something to make me feel uncomfortable in shoving antithetical worldviews down my throat, but not just shoving them down my throat, condemning me for mine. So there was no tolerance in their intolerance in the name of tolerance. And so the NBA has made me feel very unwelcome. I mean, if you went back and you knew me as a kid, I watched every Chicago Bulls game, home and away. I watched every game, all the games on the weekend. I knew every starting player of every team in the NBA, and I watched them. And I had favorites. There's nobody I loved more than Norm Van Leer and Jerry Sloan, and Chet Walker. But, I mean, I loved Dr. J. I loved Dave Bing. I mean, I had a lot of favorite players. And then I would play, when I wasn't watching basketball, I'd be playing Nerf basketball in my room and announcing the games as I was playing, or do the same thing in the front yard for hours and hours. I loved the NBA. I never watch the NBA anymore. And it's their fault. They made me feel unwelcome. And the NFL, I always talk about the addiction that I can't quite break. Kind of like, Ken will tell you today, he'd love to have a cigarette. So the NFL has offended me enough to lose me forever, but I just love it so much.
Yep.
And I limit myself to 1 or 2 games a week. But my relationship with the NFL is not the same as when I was a kid. And I won't invest myself. My son has gotten me to fall back in love with baseball. I saw every New York Yankees game last year. Can you believe that?
Wow.
That's that's a lot of time. And I haven't done that since I was a kid. Most of these sports have uninvited me. March Madness. I mean, when else would I watch a basketball game from tip-off to the final buzzer? And I'll watch all Thursday, all Friday. Oh, don't forget the Jim Nance transition. Normally in golf, Schwartzel. He'll be doing all the live golf in the Jim Nance tone. Ticklish little putt. And then he gets to March Madness, and it's all the excitement. And then after that, he has to come down after March Madness and take a walk over the Hogan Bridge and re-find himself to get ready for the Masters. A tradition unlike any other. But first, it'll be the walk through the bracket. But I watch it from start to finish. And I mean, I enjoy every game. And it's all set for us, right? We're all doing our brackets right now. Like, we have any idea what's going to happen.
We know anything.
But you know what? Buried in this bracket or in this, region, or buried there is a Cinderella and a story that's going to form, or a magical ending, or, what out of everything we lost during COVID, March Madness hurt the most. Now, Masters we got later, and it just wasn't the same in November, but nothing was like missing March Madness.
That stunk.
And I have so many great March Madness memories in person. I saw Syracuse lose in a buzzer beater in the Superdome to Indiana and Bobby Knight. That stung. To leaving work early and going somewhere and maybe having lunch, maybe having a beverage, and the games are all on, to doing the brackets now as a family or watching at home. If you were ever going to get a vasectomy, it sounds like a throwaway story. Let me tell you something. March Madness is the perfect way to stay off your feet for a couple of days and avoid any complications. But now you and Hannah first got to get married.
Yes.
Then you got to have
some kids.
And I'll tell you, both of you are so good looking, you might want to do 5'6". We need somebody to repopulate the good looking folks. In fact, in England, they need some good looking guards.
Yeah, they just lost 30.
They just lost 31, so they'll need a couple of your offspring. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like a throwaway kicker story, but yeah, if you were ever going to get a vasectomy,
it's really not a bad idea.
March Madness, Thursday through Sunday, would be a good way to stay off your feet. That or Masters weekend. I would think those would be the two.
Yes.
Everybody else has offended me enough to where, I can't really say I can binge like I used to. But I do binge March Madness, and I do binge the Masters. I want to make that 1 and 2 best bets for getting your vasectomy and staying off your feet for a Thursday through Sunday and avoid any complications. All right, that's our throwaway story of the day. Unless, of course, you're getting ready to have a vasectomy. I might have saved you a lot of trouble. It's 11:50 at WTN.
I have.
By the way, before I do that, somebody just said, I'm going to send you my autographed basketball of Dr. J to put in your man cave. Let me tell you something.
What?
I would treasure. Don't send it. Drive it over so I can meet you and hug you. You have no idea what I remember. My love for Dr. J was unmatched by anybody. I had every inch of him memorized. You could put somebody else's jersey on him, and not just the big hair days. I could spot him. I knew his walk. I knew everything about him. Roberto Clemente and Dr. J and Muhammad Ali, believe it or not, might be the trifecta of my great loves growing up. If you ever sent me an autographed Dr. J, I would treasure to the day I died. Somebody also said, we need you to send some of your kids, Mac, to England. They need some with straight teeth, too. Now, that's just being mean. And then I had somebody else say something that apparently reversing a vasectomy is far worse than getting a vasectomy. Well, my kids grew up. I ain't going to be reversing anything.
But we do have, if I could in my final minute, something I'm very, very, very proud of. I have the list of the most overweight and obese cities in America, and I can't tell you how proud and honored and thrilled I am to say that Memphis is number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2 most obese city in America.
All those wings.
Knoxville is 4th. Chattanooga is 6th, not to be confused with chafing nougat. Don't get excited, Nashville. We're moving up, but we're 16th on the list. And where I came from, Tulsa, was 19th. I was destined to be obese.
That's really something. Nashville, 16. Knoxville, 4th. Memphis, 2nd. And Chattanooga, 6th. I think it's time to go eat some lunch. I'll see you in the morning at 9.